Yo, what's good, boys? Welcome back to another banger on the Live channel. Today, we are going to be reacting to the truth behind LeBron James to the 76ers. And this video is a movie. So make sure y'all watch to the end of the video and let me know how it is in the comments down below. If y'all going to enjoy this video, make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe, help us hit 1,000 subscribers ASAP. And without further ado, enjoy the video. The truth about LeBron to the 76ers.
The LeBron James saga has finally come to an end.
True.
He's headed to Philly, joining the 76ers and forming one of the most talented teams we've seen in
years.
It's
a god team.
But how is this actually going to work? Does the fit make sense?
Yes.
And are they good enough to win a championship?
Yes.
In today's video brought to you by Prize Picks, we're going to break down.
I know we're 17 seconds into the video. The 76ers made it to second round last year. This year, they're going to be more developed, and they have a LeBron James to guide them.
On everything, starting with the fact that at the end of last season, LeBron showed us that he can still turn it on in spurts. Without Luka or Austin Reeves in the first round of the playoffs, he had to stare down a great Rockets defense and lead a cast of role players, to which he ramped up his usage, dictated the offense, and led the Lakers to a series win. It's clear that he still has a lot in the tank. But over the course of 82 games, or even multiple rounds, it's tough to carry a big offensive load. That's just what happens when you're 41 years old. That's where the Sixers come in. Tyrese Maxey and Jaylen Brown both more than fit the bill. Not just because they're great on-ball creators who can shoulder the offensive burden, but because of their durability. When you've got two guys who can play big minutes and run the show, especially in the regular season, it puts Bron in a position to pick his spots. Every now and then you'll see him run the point, attack a mismatch, leak out for a fast break. But at no
come in from the wing, come in from the wing to the corner to the hoop. Big fucking slam dunk, baby. That's what I want to see this year.
Point should he be expected to really strain his body or overextend himself in order for Philly to win games?
He won't have to. He will not
be as fresh as ever. With that said, though, it's not like he'll just be out there doing cardio. In that reduced role, he'll have to find ways to enhance the play of Maxey or Brown when they're the ones running the offense, especially in April and May.
That's true.
Over the years, LeBron has molded himself into an incredibly dynamic off-ball player. Last year, though, it seemed like his three-point shot had completely left him, especially off the catch. After arguably the two best outside shooting seasons of his career, he had his worst since joining the Lakers, only hitting 33% of his catch-and-shoot threes. This dip couldn't have come at a worse time. The Lakers were all in on Luka ball, building their entire offense around his spread pick-and-roll game, which meant LeBron was asked to be a floor spacer. In typical Bron fashion, he figured it out. He started taking less threes, leaned into his timing, straight line speed, and power to attack space off the catch. He took on a completely different role as a second side slasher, and because he's still such a great finisher and passer, there was a brief stretch towards the end of the season where he looked like one of the best connectors in the league. This particular skill set was fit for a
maybe that's because he's the best to ever touch the league.
Luka-centric offense, though. Luka plays slow and methodical. He's hunting for the pull-up three, stretches defenses 30 feet out, and doesn't need much space to get to his spots inside the arc. Most importantly, he's a top-tier playmaker who can anticipate the same openings that LeBron saw, make long-range passes to get the defense rotating, and create those opportunities for him to attack open space. That's a lot different from what we'll see with either Maxey or Brown. While neither are unwilling passers, they're both score.
But Jaylen Brown is him. Tyrese Maxey's him. VJ Edgecombe's him. Joel Embiid is him. So they're going to go 82-0.
First ball handlers whose games are predicated on getting downhill. So the question is, how can Bron's second side slashing be taken advantage of?
He can play point guard.
And if the Sixers aren't able to find a
if Bron plays point guard and dishes the ball every single play, it's going to be a movie.
Way to take advantage of it,
like literally
what other role can he play away from the ball? My mind immediately goes to using him as a screener. He's a big body who sets effective screens. He understands when and where to roll, and of course is a devastating downhill presence. You could even have him run sort of a supercharged Draymond role, operating in the middle of the floor and setting up action as the hub of the offense. The problem with that is Joel Embiid already occupies that space. Pretty much his entire game comes from the middle of the floor. If he's not the one isolating, he's the one screening. He's just always involved. You'll occasionally see him spot up on the three-point line, but that really limits his ability to influence the offense in a major way. And he can't really play from the dunker because he isn't a vertical presence. Hence, the offense always tends to revolve around his middle game. All that's to say, in order for this to work, LeBron's gonna have to thrive in that off-ball role. And I think it's really important in Philly specifically that he gets back to a higher level as a catch-and-shoot guy.
I agree.
But is his jumper gone?
No.
Or was it just a down year?
Down year.
Worth noting that he missed the first part.
100% it was a down year, dude. LeBron didn't play all that much last year. So if this year is going healthy, plays 82 games, we're going 82-0.
Part of the season with sciatica, which resulted in radiating pain and stiffness to his lower back, hips, even down to his legs. You could see how that affected his jumper. It just wasn't as fluid. There's a chance that after a full offseason of recovery, he gets some of that juice back. There's also a chance that this is just who he is for the remainder of his career. The version of LeBron we see as a shooter could be the single biggest swing factor for this offense. If he can serve as a legitimate floor spacer while continuing to lean into his off-the-catch slashing and connective passing, this team is going to put a ton of pressure on the rim and consequently get to the free throw line at will.
Which is what they need against teams like OKC and San Antonio and the New York Knicks. Like, they need to be able to get to that free throw line as much as possible.
Even before LeBron got there, a downhill trio of Maxey, VJ, and Brown, alongside a big who pulls entire defenses into his orbit, good luck keeping them away from the paint. It really felt like the one thing they were missing offensively was a connective passer. Somebody who could make tough decisions against higher-level playoff defenses and legitimately orchestrate a half-court offense. With LeBron, they struck gold. If Nick Nurse can implement the right offensive setups and actions while finding ways to utilize his all-time great passing, talent alone would make them one of the best offensive units in basketball. But it's not always that simple. Things could get really clunky because optimizing LeBron might not mean optimizing the entire roster.
Facts.
Remember, there's only one ball. And historically, stacking a bunch of creators doesn't work as well as stacking synergistic skill sets. At a certain point, it becomes redundant. And
I'm not gonna lie though, VJ Edgecombe will figure it out. VJ Edgecombe will command the team, bro. Drive the ship, lead the boat, right? That's what VJ Edgecombe does.
Actually be more. That's one of my biggest worries with the way the Sixers have built their roster. Jaylen Brown is a ball-dominant player. Even during Boston's best years, most of his offense was either starting in high pick-and-roll setups or in isolation. Anytime he was reduced to spotting up, his impact wasn't felt to the same degree. Like I said earlier, Embiid's offense is predicated on creating space for him to operate in the middle. That could mean having him screen, start from the post, face up and isolate. Even after all of the injuries, he's remained one of the most imposing scorers on the planet, but he plays a very specific brand of basketball. Between those two, Maxey's pick and roll game and finding touches.
Maxey's pick and roll game is something else. Do not even get me started, bro.
For LeBron,
do not even get me started,
you don't want this to turn into a your turn, my turn situation where there's no consistent scheme.
Facts.
With all of that said, though, I'm really intrigued by the idea of an offense built around locating a mismatch. Maybe this team's greatest superpower is how many matchup issues they create off rip. There are very few teams in the league with 4 defenders capable of matching up against their top 4. If your top 2 point-of-attack guys take Maxey and Brown, who guards LeBron? If your lineup is on the smaller side, who takes Embiid? You can't overlook the sheer offensive talent and the ceiling that comes with it. Everything just comes back to whether or not they'll have the space to take advantage.
Facts.
Don't get me wrong, they've got some shooters on their roster, and we'll get to them. But for now, I'm focused on the main 5. Over the past 2 seasons, Joel Embiid has been the highest volume catch-and-shoot guy, but he's only made 33% of them. Jaylen Brown's at about 34% on limited volume. He's not a real threat. To me, their spacing comes down to these 3 guys. What version of LeBron shows up? The 40% shooter or the 33% one? Can VJ remain in the high 30s while getting up to 5 attempts a night?
VJ can drop 40 points a game if he wants to. The only reason why he doesn't is because he wants to give everyone else a chance.
Maxey's the only one I'm completely confident in, and that's because he's just a flat-out elite shooter. By nature of the way the roster's been built over the past few years, he's had to dominate the ball. Now he'll be in a position to play off of creation for the first time since they got rid of James Harden, which in my opinion comes with serious benefits, as well as some notable drawbacks. Let's start with the negative. Maxey is one of the most valuable turnover suppressors in the entire league, meaning he can carry a huge offensive load while taking great care of the ball, which in turn keeps his team's turnovers to a minimum. And that was a big part of Philly's identity. You don't get that same sort of signal with Jaylen or LeBron. In fact, they both turn the ball over at a decently high rate. We
saw a lot of LeBron turnovers last season. 100% we did.
Taking the ball out of Maxey's hands, they're gonna turn it over more. But the benefits may outweigh that because, in my opinion, he's one of the most dynamic off-ball players in the NBA. As a spot-up shooter alone, we're talking about somebody who can space the floor from well behind the three-point line, catch and shoot with a quick trigger, and make 40% of these shots, while being one of the most explosive drivers in the league. So get him attacking a closeout or slashing into open space, and he can completely break down a defense. What I think we're going to see more of in this upcoming season, though, is Maxey working off of screens. We've seen flashes of legit movement shooting, and we know he can make quick decisions on the fly. I like the idea of having LeBron run the point while Maxey works to get the ball with an advantage.
Absolutely.
In general, I just think the Bron and Maxey duo makes so much sense.
It does.
It feels very Bron and Kyrie-esque, where either can handle the ball. They can run the two-man game with either guy screening. It's hard to tilt a defense towards one without the other beating your rotations. And while LeBron obviously isn't the player he was in 2017, there's still a lot he can do with the ball. In fact, a lot of his value over the past 2 seasons came from what he was able to do when Luka or Reeves went to the bench. Because he's lost a lot of his fluidity and explosiveness, it's not as easy for him to get to the rim from a standstill. Along with limitations as a pull-up shooter, a LeBron-centric offense looks a lot different these days. Instead of spamming spread pick and roll, what we saw at the end of last season was more akin to how the Nuggets like to use Jokic. Obviously, it's a bit different, but his game was predicated on locating a mismatch, getting the ball in the pinch post, setting up action, and making quick decisions.
He's not wrong.
It was very egalitarian, with everybody getting touches
very
in the flow of the offense. And LeBron in particular took on different roles seemingly every possession. That style of offense wasn't best in the league level. It was
no,
good,
not at all, which is why they didn't go the way.
bench units.
100%.
And that's a big deal for Philly, because their bench is filled out with guys who can do plenty of other things. They signed Anthony Simons, who's flat out one of the best shooters in the NBA, and a reliable secondary ball handler who doesn't turn it over. They also signed Dean Wade. While that's more of a defensive move, he's a decently high-volume catch-and-shoot guy who can get on the offensive glass. Speaking of offensive rebounding, all 3 of Dominic Barlow, Adem Bona, and Ariel Hookporty rack up second chance opportunities. Not to mention the other raw skills you get with 22-year-old Justin Edwards or 22nd overall pick LeBron Philon Jr. Take the starting 5 out of the equation for a second and think about the different types of lineups you can put around LeBron. Want high energy, young athletes? They've got them. Want a 3-point centric lineup that spreads the floor? They've got weapons. Want to maximize possessions by getting your best offensive rebounders and turnover suppressors on the court? They have those at their disposal.
They literally have everything. The 76ers literally have everything this season. Like, everything.
The most important part is that all of these lineups have serious transition scoring potential. Here's a look at last year's league leaders in transition scoring possessions per game. Notice anything? 3 of the top 4 now reside in Philly, and none of them are VJ Edgecombe, who's pretty great in transition himself.
Pretty great? Whoa, not pretty great. He's the greatest. Not pretty great, he's the greatest.
We're talking about a team that has an opportunity to completely dominate in the open floor. My only concern is whether or not they have the ability to create those possessions.
100% they do.
Before we get into that, I want to take a second to thank forcing a turnover and running out. It's pushing pace after a live rebound to attack before they can recover. Unless you have a guy like Tyrese Halliburton who's just going to run and gun after every made shot, the two are intertwined. While Philly's main guys have the transition scoring part down, I don't think they have the other side of it. In the midst of New York's tour de force of a playoff run, Philly's glaring defensive issues went slightly overlooked. One being Joel Embiid's limited mobility. He just couldn't move his feet at all to keep up with anything the Knicks were doing. He also struggled to leave his feet to make his presence felt down low. What was once one of the most imposing interior defenders in basketball is now just a giant body. While that can help, he's limited to deep drop coverage, isn't a big vertical presence, isn't at all a defensive playmaker, and can really struggle on the glass.
I agree.
In order to keep him at the basket without running into issues, you need to surround him with rangy, versatile athletic wings and forwards who can protect the rim and rebound. That's just not how this roster is constructed. I wouldn't call LeBron a liability, but at this point he picks his spots. He'll make smart rotations, get in the right spot at the right time, and he knows how to execute a scheme. But you can't ask him to consistently cover ground or protect the rim, and it feels like that's exactly what their roster is asking him to do. In the starting 5, he's the secondary rim protector. Along with Embiid's limited coverage at this point, their first line of defense is gonna have to be flawless. It's imperative that VJ Edgecombe takes a serious step forward. Remember, he was a defensive prospect. By simplifying his game on offense, maybe we'll see him lean into some more defensive chaos, using his agility and length to not only hound opposing ball handlers, but make plays and force turnovers. If he can step into a primary point of attack role and legitimately move the needle, that would make things so much easier for both Bron and Joel behind the play. In that same line of thinking, Jaylen Brown is going to have to buy into more of a defense-centric role. By redistributing some of his prior offensive load to Maxey and Bron, he should have more energy to pressure the ball and make plays. I personally think the best version of Philly is one where he takes a slight backseat on offense to hone in on his defensive versatility, 100%. Giving them a consistent option against bigger wings and forwards.
100%.
As for Maxey, he's just there to be a defensive playmaker. He's quietly got some of the best hands in the league to go along with his speed. Again, if they're not asking for as much from him on offense, I could see him leading the league in steals. The problem is, it feels like that's what it's going to take. Across the board, a front court of Jaylen, LeBron, and Embiid forces virtually no turnovers. That's not an exaggeration. Look at last year's landscape in deflections and steals. Now look at where Paul George and Kelly Oubre landed. These are their replacements. If you aren't going to force any turnovers, you have to be exceptional in other areas. They literally are the replacements. They just aren't. There isn't much switchability. They have little to no coverage versatility. I'm not even sure if they'll be able to close possessions on the glass. And that, to me, is the single biggest problem with this group. Their roster is loaded with guys who do these little things. Dean Wade is one of the more versatile defensive forwards in the league, has great hands and can rebound. Justin Edwards is a big, lengthy wing who forces turnovers. Dominic Barlow is another incredibly versatile defensive big who can play the 4 or small ball 5. And if they need to get a legit shot-blocking presence on the court, they can call on Adem Bono or Ariel Hook-Porty. Depth, lineup construction, and roster versatility aren't the issues. It's the ability to field out one elite 5-man group. In a starting and closing 5 consisting of Maxey, VJ, Jaylen, LeBron, and Embiid, you have lots of talent. Maybe the most talented
never mind.
5 in basketball. But you also have a lot of synergistic flaws. With Embiid on the court, you're forced to play one way defensively. In that lineup, a 42-year-old LeBron is expected to be a defensive playmaker and secondary rim protector. That's an extremely tough sell against great playoff offenses like the Knicks or the Pacers. And even if you figure it out, you have to be able to rebound. You could live with some of the defensive issues if the offense was a home run fit, but that has just as many question marks. Who handles the ball? How do you get as much off-ball value as possible from your front court? How do you manage clunky spacing and offensive setups? Not to mention the fact that they won't be able to create any second chances themselves. Along with some potential turnover issues, they're going to often find themselves relying on the sheer talent of their shot makers. So although they might be the most talented 5 in basketball, potentially featuring 4 top 20 players, it's hard to envision a world where...
So he said 4 because he wasn't adding VJ Edgecombe. Let's just go ahead and make it 5 because VJ is top 20.
That 5 actually produces the signal of a championship level team. Between limited defensive versatility, poor rebounding, questionable offensive fit, and zero influence on possessions, it's just awkward. Flawed.
I agree.
With all of that said, though, I just can't overlook the potential staggers. While I'm admittedly lower on the starting and probable closing 5, those 36 minutes in between have my attention. They'll 100%. Be able to keep at least 2 of their top 4 on the floor at all times, and replace those other spots with guys who can shoot, defend, rebound, or force turnovers. Over the course of a 48-minute game, they should have enough lineups they can go to that just obliterate other benches. So, although it's a weird assortment of players, it also kind of makes sense. I have a hard time viewing them as a legitimate championship contender, but I won't sit here and deny the ceiling.
What do you mean? Like, what are you talking about, bro? They're gonna go all the way and win a chip,
bro. Just paid $4 million for a top 25 player in the NBA. They've constructed a roster that doesn't need Joel Embiid or LeBron James to be healthy for the entire season. All they're asking for is those guys to show up in the playoffs.
100%.
Then
that's all
anything
they need,
can happen.
That's all
Nick
they
Nurse
need.
and his coaching staff have the pieces.
And
we'll just have to see if they can put them in the right place.
And they can. I don't know what they need. Like, if they... No, they can. Chat, that was the truth about LeBron to the 76ers. If y'all went on to enjoy, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and I'm going to catch y'all in the next one.